Hello there. Today I want to go through the process I use to prepare a blank for the lathe. This is a fairly large piece of well-aged black walnut. And the way I'm going to take a bowl out of it is right through the top straight down, if you will. Now, to get a blank prepared for the lathe, you have to analyze it, see how big of a bowl you think you can get out of it. Here I've got some checks down here, but given that I'll be swinging the base of the bowl, this will be the bottom, I think those will turn away. Equally true is I have a little split like through the pith, but there again, this will be the top of the bowl, so the hollow part will likely take that away. And these are the considerations you have to make when you're looking at a blank of wood like this and deciding exactly how you can get a bowl out of it in the best way to avoid problems with the wood that may have occurred during the aging process. So, given that I'm going to cut a circle here, you have to also realize that you can't just put a compass in the center, spread it out to the maximum diameter you think you want to try and swing, and then go around. If you do that, the compass will go down and it'll make what looks like a circle, but when you cut it out, you'll end up with an oval. And that's because as you change the plane that you're drawing the circle on, drop it down, these wing out further actually. Pardon me, they tuck in, this stays out further, and you don't end up with a circle. The circle that you want is defined in space on the horizontal plane here. The way to get that in reality is to cut a circle of fairly hard cardboard. This is actually from a printed picture that I picked up out of the trash or somewhere. The point being that it's a nice stiff hunk of paper. You could use thin plywood, paneling, anything that you have that will give you the circle, because this will hold it out in space. Another thing you have to look at is that here I've got these knobs up here from some kind of inclusion. If I put this on here, it holds this on an angle, and I want it held out. The way I found to correct for that is I make these little wedges. These are just out of thin cardboard. You can cut up anything that's a little stiff, even plain cardboard, or even small wedges of wood. The way I use them is I find what it would take to hold this on a horizontal plane, and I'll shove these underneath until I get them positioned where it looks like it'll be effective. So usually 2 will do it, just to correct this so it's fairly flat. Then I will carefully lift this off, set it aside, and without moving them, of course, I'll just get some masking tape and stick them down so that they stay there. They don't have to be held with any great degree of strength. You don't have to glue them in place. They're just going to sit there while we make our cut and hold that circle on a nice horizontal plane so that what we end up with is a true circle. So now let's place this back on. And that's pretty much where I want it. I next want to position this so that it is where I want it relative to the blank, and I just eyeball it to get it close. Now this blank is about 11 inches in diameter, and as you can see I'm using a 10.5-inch circle, so I've got a little leeway. The way I hold the circle in place, I got a little hole there, and I just tap the finishing nail. That will hold it where I need it. Now we're going to cut the blank. When you're doing this, as you cut, you try to stay away from actually grabbing this. Occasionally you will, but no big deal. Just flip out of the way. And you just follow that blade, your blade, along that lip, and you'll end up with a circle. Always wear your earmuffs when you're doing this. back where we started. I can pull that little nail out, pull the excess off, get the little wedges out of the place, and now I have a circle. This is a nice round blank, and it's very round. It should be as round as possible for the next step, and I'll show you that now. Well, here's that nice blank that we just cut on the bandsaw. It is pretty close to round, and we're ready to mount it on the lathe. I'm going to be pulling the bowl out of it such that the top of the bowl will be here and the bottom will be here. I will like to mount it first to turn the hollow out first and turn the top, and I'll go along the sides to make my bowl, and then I'll reverse turn it to finish the foot. Knowing that, the first step is to mount this on the lathe. And how are you going to do that? Many people like to use the scroll chucks with the steel jaws. You'll drill a 2-inch Forstner bit hole into this deep enough to allow engagement on these lips of the jaws, and tighten it up and start turning. And I've used that method, but I don't like using that method on something this large. It's just too much weight and too severe of cutting. The impact loads, I'm afraid, will loosen it in the hole. You have to keep stopping the lathe, tightening it. There's always the chance that one catch or just the stress of the turning will launch it right out of the jaws, and that's about the last thing you ever want to have happen. For something this large, I like to mount it on a faceplate with a waste block that I glue right to the piece. And I have prepared a faceplate that I want to use. It's got the waste block attached. Whenever I do this, I always put the waste block blank on the faceplate and turn it true. I turn it so I know it's round and flat. Never trust a piece of wood to be perfectly parallel between the two sides. Always mount it on the faceplate and turn it flat. Then I know whatever I mount to this will run true to the lathe. But you can clearly see I can't just put this on here. There's no way that that's going to be glued on there. I'd have to flatten this off. The best way to flatten it off is, of course, to turn it. There are other methods, I'm sure, but that's the tools I have. I just want to turn that. So then you have to mount it on the lathe from this side. Now, I can use the method of a simple faceplate on here because it's pretty close to flat. And the screw holes that I do drill to mount this will disappear when I hollow this out. So that's the method I'm going to use. I'm going to mount it here, turn the position that I'm going to put the mounting block onto on the bottom here, and then flip it around and move forward. This has the disadvantage that you're going to be delayed while you let the glue dry. I don't care, I'd rather be safe. To get this pretty close to center, I found that I can just use a ruler, and it comes out to, on this particular setup, about 3 1/8 inches. Run the 4 quadrants to about that, and you'll be pretty much close enough to be on center. Then, simple matter as usual, you just drill your holes. And then you put your driver bit in. And I use fairly long screws. These are about 1.5 long, and they're going to do the trick. Again, you just want to do whatever it takes to make sure this does not come off. You always start all 4 screws before you start really tightening them. Like you see, I'm going to need more clutch here because this is pretty hardwood. Now, I'm quite confident that this is not going to come off the lathe. So let's put it on and we'll turn it. Okay, I'm back, and now we're going to go ahead and turn the flat area that I'm going to mount the next faceplate to. To start with, I'm probably just going to use the tool that I make. I just like it for these abrupt cuts because the impacts don't tend to pull it off course. You always start slow with something like this and spin it up. It's going to be out of balance. You can see this is going to be a bit intimidating, so let's take some of that out of balance weight off of it. I think you can see that the brutality of this kind of turning is not something you want to really trust the chuck to. I like it on the faceplate. We're starting to get her knocked off a bit now, at least. And you can see here that I can start defining a flat area. So let's work that down a little more. And that's coming down nicely. Now I'm going to consider, as I turn this, how big I want my foot to actually be. Sometimes you want to just stop to where this is at the diameter that you want the foot to be, and let the voids happen here as they might. If you're going to do that, when you go to glue this together, I could probably put some broken off pieces of popsicle sticks or something in there and put a bunch of glue in there, and it'll hold it nicely. But I'm going to make this a little bit larger surface area and a little bit flatter as I go, because I can see it's not quite flat enough. And for that, I think I'm going to switch to a different tool here. I think I might go a little more. I'm just going to go ahead and continue, and then I'll come back when I'm a little bit closer to round. Now when I'm doing this kind of work, while I have it in this orientation, I'll go ahead and start getting my bowl shape defined, because it's easier when it's facing out like this than after I turn the blank around and start turning it from the other side. So I may as well do it now, and then it'll be done. So let me continue with that. One of the things I can do while I'm turning this down is I can start defining a circle the same size as the waste block I'm going to put on here. That will serve me benefit when I go to mount the waste block and faceplate onto this blank. I'll be doing that on the bench, laying it down and gluing it in, and when you have that circle equal to the size on the waste block that's on your faceplate, it's real simple to get it right on center. I just keep checking until I think I'm pretty close to what I want. And now I'm pretty close to there. That'll be a good target circle for me to hit with this. Now I still want to make this area that I'm going to apply the glue to a little flatter. I can tell it's not quite flat enough. It's in the center, so I'll correct that now. And that will give me the greatest amount of glue area to mount the waste block to. That's pretty good. Now, again, you don't need a perfect glue joint, but you want a strong one. And now this will sit flat on there. It's nice and secure. Now I can go ahead, take this off the lathe, take the face plate that's holding it on now off, put it on the bench, and simply glue this right to the bottom. From that point, it's just basic bowl turning. I wanted to show you the method that I use for a blank that's this large to prepare it for turning on the lathe, so that you're safe and secure, and it's just a real strong method to use. When I do have the bowl finished on the faceplate, I'll cut it off with the bandsaw, put it on my cold jaws, turn the foot, and this will be a nice bowl. Thanks for watching.